Hey everyone, before we begin, please subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Your support truly means the world. Some places never really let go of you. You can move away, build a whole new life, raise kids, bury parents, and there's still one building somewhere that owns a piece of you. For me, that place is a small store off Route 17. My name's Daniel Carter. I'm 68, and until 3 weeks ago, I hadn't set foot in that store in over 30 years. It wasn't that I hated it. I couldn't handle what it reminded me of. Back in 1995, my wife Helen and I ran that store together. Nothing fancy, creaky wood floors, a coffee pot that was always on, and regulars who never once had to tell us their order. Helen knew every birthday in town. She knew who liked their pie with extra cinnamon, and which families were quietly falling behind on rent. She never let anybody walk out empty-handed. If a farmer came up short, she'd write, "Pay" in the ledger anyway, and give me this little private smile, like she'd just gotten away with something wonderful. That woman had the biggest heart I've ever known. We figured we'd grow old behind that counter. Then a factory 40 minutes north offered me a management job, triple what the store brought in. Helen didn't want to go. I could see it in her face, but she squeezed my hand and said, "Home isn't a building, Danny. It's wherever we're together." So we sold the place. At least, that's what everyone assumed. The truth was stranger. The buyer backed out at the last minute, and the paperwork never got finished. The building stayed in our name. We boarded the windows, locked the door, and drove north. I told Helen we'd come back someday. Work got busy, then it got busier. Promotions, then grandkids. 1 year turned into 5. 5 turned into 15, and before I understood how, 31 years had slipped through my hands. Our son Mark barely remembered the place. To him it was just some dusty old building we still, for some reason, paid taxes on. Helen never forgot it. Every couple of months she'd take off for a weekend, always saying she was visiting old friends. I never pushed. 51 years of marriage teaches you that trust doesn't need an explanation attached to it. She'd come home looking lighter somehow, younger. I figured old friends were good for her. I had no idea she wasn't visiting friends. 6 months ago, Helen passed. Cancer, and fast. Faster than any of the doctors expected. After 51 years side by side, the house went quiet in a way I still haven't gotten used to. I still reach for her side of the bed. Still hear her laugh in rooms that are empty. Grief doesn't leave. It just gets better at hiding. About a month after the funeral, Mark showed up with a folder of paperwork. "Dad, we need to sort out Mom's estate." He spread it all across the kitchen table. Insurance forms, bank statements, property tax bills. One sheet stopped me cold. A property assessment for the old Carter General Store. I hadn't seen that address written down in decades. "Honestly, why are we still paying taxes on that thing?" Mark said. "It's probably ready to fall down." Worthless. That word he used hit harder than it should have. "We should just sell it," he went on. "I've already got a developer interested." I looked out the window. In 51 years, Helen never once brought up selling that store, not once. So, what had she been holding on to? Mark slid a pen across the table. "Just sign here." I picked it up. My hand wouldn't move. Something in my gut said, "Don't." I set the pen back down. "I'm going there first," I said. Mark laughed like I'd made a joke. "For what? It's an empty building." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe not." The next morning I packed a bag, filled the truck with gas, and drove south for the first time in 31 years. Every mile brought something back. The diner we used to stop at, the bridge we crossed on our first trip out there, the field where we used to picnic when we were still young enough not to worry about bad backs. By the time I reached town, the sun was going down. The town itself had changed. New subdivisions, a stoplight where there used to be a stop sign. But at the end of Main Street, the old store stood exactly where I'd left it. Weeds up through the porch boards, the sign faded but still hanging. I parked across the street and just sat there because I couldn't make my legs work. Then I saw it, a warm yellow light glowing through the front window. That building hadn't had power in 30 years. It couldn't have. And then the porch light clicked on, slow and steady, exactly the way Helen used to flip it on every night before closing up. My hands were shaking. Before I tell you what was waiting behind that door, I want to ask you something. If you'd been sitting in that truck, would you have gone inside, or would you have driven straight home? Let me know down in the comments, and stick around, because this story isn't finished with you yet. I sat there for almost a full minute just watching that light. It wasn't flickering, wasn't weak. It burned steady, the way it always had. My heart was pounding loud enough that I could hear it over the truck engine. "This isn't possible," I said out loud to nobody. I got out. The air smelled like rain and pine, the same as it always did out there. The porch boards groaned under my boots, that exact sound. And for 1 second I could have sworn I heard Helen's voice. "Danny, don't forget to lock up." I still had her brass key on my ring. 31 years, and I'd never once thought to take it off. I slid it into the lock. It turned like the door had been waiting for me. The smell hit me first. Coffee, vanilla, cinnamon. Helen's candles. Some of the shelves were dusty, but not all of them. The counter had been wiped clean. Fresh flowers sat in a jar of water that hadn't gone cloudy yet. And on the register sat a handwritten sign. "Back in 10 minutes." My knees nearly buckled. That handwriting was Helen's. Every loop, every letter. That's when I heard footsteps, not from outside. From the storeroom behind me. I spun around so fast I almost went down. An older woman stood in the doorway, staring at me, hand over her mouth. "Oh my goodness," she said. "Danny." It took me a second. Margaret. She used to run the bakery across the street. Her hair had gone completely white. She crossed the room and hugged me hard. "I always figured you'd come back one day." "Margaret," I managed. "Who's been turning the lights on?" She looked at me like the answer was obvious. "Helen did." I stared at her. "Helen's been gone 6 months." Her smile faded. "I know. She came here every other month for 31 years, Danny. Sometimes more. Never missed your anniversary. Never missed Christmas. Always spent your birthday here." I put a hand on the counter to steady myself. "She told me she was seeing friends." "She was," Margaret said softly. "She was seeing all of us." Then she reached under the counter and lifted out a small wooden box with my name carved across the lid. "She left this 3 weeks before she passed. Made me promise I wouldn't hand it to you until you walked back through that door on your own." The box had a little brass lock. Helen's key fit it perfectly. Inside were envelopes. Dozens of them, each one dated, going back 31 years. One for every visit. Every letter started the same way. "Dear Danny, I don't understand any of this." I said. Margaret rested a hand on my shoulder. "You will, just not tonight." She nodded toward the staircase in back. Helen's instructions were clear. If you ever came back, you were to spend 1 night upstairs before you read the last letter. And if I don't, then you'll never understand why she kept this place breathing all these years. I looked at that dark staircase, then down at the box of 31 years of secrets in my hands. For the first time since the funeral, it felt like Helen was still leading me somewhere. Somewhere she'd been trying to bring me for a very long time. I picked up the box and started up the stairs. Every step groaned exactly the way I remembered. Nothing up there had changed. The same wallpaper, the same little window over the road, even the same brass doorknob. I unlocked the apartment door, and the smell of lavender hit me. Helen's soap, and not old and musty, but fresh, like someone had cracked the windows that morning. The living room looked untouched. Our old sofa. The rocking chair I'd built her with my own 2 hands, still facing the fireplace, a knitted blanket folded over the arm. On the seat sat a cream envelope with my name on it. Inside, 1 line, "Please make yourself a cup of coffee before you read anything else." I laughed and cried at the same time. Even now, she was still telling me what to do. The kitchen hadn't changed either, same tin by the stove. I opened it, and the beans inside were fresh. Impossible, and yet there they were. A note tucked beside them read, "Margaret refills this every Thursday." I asked her never to stop. I made the coffee, sat down in that rocking chair, and opened the first letter. "Dear Danny, if you're reading this, you finally came home. I always knew you would, even if it took 30 years. I had to stop reading for a minute. When I picked it back up, it said, "You always thought I kept coming back because I couldn't let go of the past. That's not it. I came back because this building still had work to do." I frowned and turned the page. Remember Mr. Jenkins, the widower who only ever bought bread and canned soup. After we left, I found out he had no one, no kids, no family nearby, so I came back, cleaned the place up, made coffee, sat with him every Friday until the day he passed, and when he was gone, somebody else took his spot at that same table. My chest went tight. I kept reading over the years. This little store turned into something else. Not a business, a lifeline. Widows, veterans with no one left, kids who just needed somebody to listen, travelers stuck in a storm with nowhere to go. They all found their way here. My hands were shaking by now. Helen hadn't been holding onto a building all those years. She'd been holding a door open for anyone who needed one. Every trip, every visiting friends. She hadn't been running from me. She'd been doing this quietly, without ever once asking for credit. I stood up and walked to the window. Across the street, an old man was sweeping his porch. He looked up, saw me, and waved like he'd been expecting me all along. A few minutes later, someone knocked, then again. I opened the door to 3 older women, one holding an apple pie, another with a bunch of flowers, the third just smiling like she already knew me. "We heard Danny finally came back," one of them said. More people showed up behind them. A retired firefighter, a young mother with 2 kids on her hip, an old veteran in a faded service cap. Within 10 minutes, that little apartment was full of people I'd never met. "What is all this?" I asked Margaret. She smiled. "They came to meet the man Helen talked about for 31 years. She talked about me." "Every single visit," Margaret said. "She told everyone you blamed yourself for leaving, and that she hoped one day you'd let that go." The veteran stepped up first. "You don't know me, but your wife paid for my groceries the winter I lost my job. She bought my son's school supplies," the young mother said. "She sat with my husband at the nursing home every week till he passed," said one of the older women. "She gave my daughter her first job," someone else added. "Paid our electric bill one Christmas when things got bad." One story after another, filling up that little room. Kindnesses Helen had never once mentioned to me, not in 51 years of marriage. As everyone finally said their goodnights and headed home, Margaret handed me one last envelope. The paper was newer than the others. 4 words on the front. "Read this tomorrow morning." "Why tomorrow?" I asked. She smiled. "Because Helen said tonight you needed to understand why she never sold this place. Tomorrow, she wants you to understand what happens next." I set that last letter on the nightstand. Outside, the porch light was still burning. For the first time in 6 months, the house, this house, her house, didn't feel empty. Because somehow, even after she was gone, Helen had left me a path to walk. And something told me that letter, waiting for morning, was about to change the rest of my life.